Many times the Lord grows us through His Word and through prayer. But other times He chooses to use our pain as an opportunity for growth. Not all of the time, but many times in my life, I probably could have avoided this pain if I had been a better person or a better leader, if I had made better decisions. But regardless of the reason, the Lord used these situations, these opportunities to grow the internal of my being. And many times the type of growth that happened would have never come without having walked down that particular tough road in my life. Pain is inevitable. We all experience pain. Pain is part of making progress in ministry and in life. And if we want to be where the Lord desires us to be, there's no way that we can avoid the growth that pain helps us achieve. Stay tuned to the end, and I'll share with you some of my own encounters with pain in ministry. Hey there, I'm Ryan Franklin, and this is Church Leader Made Simple. I'd love for you to join me every week as we explore leadership topics that'll help you get the clarity needed to move your church forward. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notified as soon as I post a new session. And without any further delay, let's get to it. I was working with a person recently that was in a relational situation that felt hopeless. He was going through some rejection from one of his adult kids, and unfortunately, it even involved grandkids. And in our conversation, he came to the realization that there was nothing he could do to control the actions of his adult son. And I could literally feel the deep agony and pain that he was experiencing as he came to this realization. And as we began to process that pain and the heaviness started to lift a little bit, he verbally asked himself the question, what can I learn from the situation, and how can it make me a better dad and a better person in general? This pain actually allowed us to dive into some of the core issues that were holding him back in the way that he interacted with people on his church leadership team. Here's reality. There's no way that we can control all of the circumstances around us. And so we can't always control the pain that comes our way, but we can control our response to that pain. We can decide if we're going to harbor the anxiety that comes along with it, or if we'll release it by processing and grieving that loss and ultimately allowing it to bring us to a greater place in life. There's lots of biblical examples of pain, but I often think of Paul. Paul was such a great leader who accomplished big things in the launch of the church. Paul, he wrote most of the New Testament and accomplished all sorts of amazing feats for the church, yet he did it while experiencing persecution or prison or relational conflict. He did it while going through some of the most extreme pressures imaginable. Listen to what he says in 2 Corinthians 12:7. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelation, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. Paul talks about a thorn in the flesh, and he calls it a messenger of Satan that was put there to torment him. Now, we don't know exactly what or why it was there. We don't know if it was physical or spiritual or emotional. There's not really a lot of information on what the thorn in the flesh was, but what we do know is that it was the source of a ton of real pain for Paul's life. In fact, it was so bad that we see in verse 8 that Paul asked the Lord 3 times to remove it from him. Many people like to look at him as some Superman, but reality is that he was no more human than you and I. No one wants to live in pain, including the Apostle Paul. But the Lord was using these things to build Paul's character in a much greater way and to help remove things like pride and to provide internal growth that could not come any other way. But let's see how he responds to this pain in verse 9, 2 Corinthians 12:9. And he said unto me, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. So instead of removing the pain, God gave him the grace and the strength to go through the pain. Paul learned that God's strength is made perfect in human weakness. And what we can't fix or control or do, God steps in and becomes our strength. Listen to verse 10, 2 Corinthians 12:10. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Pain is inevitable. The pain is gonna come. But God gives us the strength and the fortitude and the grace to walk through the infirmities, to walk through the pain that we're experiencing and come out on the other side a better man or woman of God. Several years ago now, when I was transitioned in ministry from more of a pastoral support role to an actual pastoral role at my local church, I can remember those first few months of transition. It was exciting on one hand, but it was extremely painful on the other hand. I was excited to have the opportunity to be a pastor at one of the greatest churches in America, POA. And even though I assisted for many years with many of the duties that I took on, there was still a very steep learning curve to handle the volume and the complexity of the task that I was now responsible for. And it couldn't have come at a more challenging time in my life, as I was in the middle of finishing an intense master's degree program, and I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can remember one particular week, about 3 to 4 months in, I was burning the candle at both ends. My anxiety and my stress was at an all-time high, and I just had to deal with a major leadership conflict in one of the ministries that I oversaw. And I just felt like I was going to collapse emotionally and even physically by this point. And I felt like I was at my human limit of what I could handle. And I admitted this to a close friend. And amazingly, it was at that moment of admitting my limitations that I felt the hands of the Lord slide under my arms in a supernatural way. I knew He was with me, and I knew everything was going to be okay. I knew He was going to give me the strength, and He did just that. He provided exactly what I needed through prayer and through people that were strategically placed in my life, and the rest is history. And I came out of that pain that I was in, but I came out of it a much better man and a better leader. Pain is not fun. We'll probably always try to escape the pain to the best of our abilities. That's natural. But we have to remember that our scars and our hurts and our pains are literally preparing us for something bigger in our lives, something greater for the kingdom of God. As usual, I have a couple of questions I want you to process over the next few days. The first one is, what pain, anxiety, or negative experiences have I gone through in my life or ministry in this last year? And then ask yourself, number 2, what growth opportunity has the pain presented for me? And I encourage you to actually list these answers out somewhere, to bring them to the surface of your mind in a much greater way. It's going to help deepen that learning experience within you. Life's pain usually brings gain. And the Lord could very well be using the pain in your life to shape and mold you into the leader that He desires you to be. Coming up soon in the next session, I'll tell you about my experience with starting this YouTube podcast and blog. And be sure to visit churchleadermadesimple.com. There's a free 7-session course called Leader Life and Rhythm that you can't find anywhere else. Oh, and by the way, I would greatly appreciate you hitting the like button and sharing this content on your favorite social media sites. It just helps me extend my reach. I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you.